What up, what up, what up? Welcome to another episode of New Orleans Basketball and New Orleans Network podcast. As always, I am your host, Raphael Rattler, joined by my fellow middle brother, Garrick Rattler. We are finally here, bro.
Feels like I got my today is NBA jersey day. So I got my jersey laid out. I got my basketball shorts laid out. I got my J's by the bed laid out. It feels like the first day before school, man. And yeah, we are here. Tomorrow is opening night for the NBA. Got a lot of good games, 2 good games for sure on getting us started, man. Getting us started. No more preseason. No more if this person, who's gonna do this, the ball will be rolled out and it is hooping time. So yeah, man, I'm excited. And what can I say? The NBA got some big shoes to fill after the season of W just gave us, man. I mean, it was a season to remember. I got to see Angel play in person. I got to see Asia play in person. I saw Asia play Caitlin Clark. I went to the way earlier in the season, so I got to see some really good games. And man, shout out to the Liberty. I tweeted about it yesterday. The Liberty just felt like a team of destiny this year. They felt like all of the narratives, all of the push, and really their play on the floor kind of dictated them being a championship team. It was a slugfest in that 5-game series versus Fee and Kayla McBride and Courtney Williams in the Lynx. But I think the right team won. I think the right person won Finals MVP because Stewie and Sabrina were bricking, to say the least. And Jonquel really was the bedrock of their team in the finals. So big shout out to the Liberty. Big shout out to Jonquel Jones. Hopefully she gets that parade back in her home country that she's been basically begging. They should celebrate her for that. But yeah, man, the NBA is here, and rookie extension deadline was today. People got some money. The bag was secured today. So can't wait to get into that. Can't wait to get into the season starting up, man. How's everything on your side?
Everything is blessed. I'm excited. After this week of football, I'm just ready to turn the page. Shout out to LSU though, but I'm ready to turn the page to basketball season.
Shout out to UL though, 5-1 now. Shout out to my Cajuns.
Your Cajuns. But before we get into that and the money that was secured by a lot of young gentlemen, make sure you guys will follow us on Twitter, on X, on IG, TikTok. That's NO_basketball, no E. Make sure you're liking the episode below. If you're not already, make sure you're subscribed to the channel because the season is here. So yeah, let's jump right into it. So Trey Murphy, earlier today, the Pelicans announced that Trey Murphy has signed an extension to his rookie contract, 4 years, $112 million, no player options, no options at all. You have Herb, DeJounte, Zion, and Trey locked up for the next 4 years. What are your thoughts, initial thoughts on the contract? Too high, too low, just right? What were your first impressions of this extension?
I love the contract for both sides. I think in lieu of that player option, Trey Murphy has an opportunity to hit free agency if he so wishes a year earlier, right? It's not the 5-year extension. So he gets to double back. And if he's playing above that contract, he thinks he deserves a much bigger contract. He doesn't have to stay in that contract for another year. And the Pelicans get Trey Murphy locked in for a really good number. Especially when you think about the cap space, the cap rises that's projected throughout the entirety of the length of this contract. You're talking about a fairly small, we talk about $30 million a year, whatever the case is. So it's not a small number. But in relative to where people are going to be paid, especially when you look at some of the other contracts that were given out, Trey Murphy gets his, the Pelicans get Trey Murphy on a good cap contract. And also, they get Trey Murphy. You are now part of the core of this team, meaning there's going to be an increased role for Trey Murphy. I think we knew this extension was going to happen, but to cross that $100 million mark as a player, you now will be asked and tasked and expected to have a lot more on your plate. And so I think it's a good deal for both. Trey gets to hit the free agency earlier, and the Pels get a really good player locked up for a while on a really good contract. So my initial thought when I first saw it, I was like, this is about, if not a little bit more team friendly than I thought it was going to be. But this is about where I thought, Trey Murphy was going to get, and good for him to lock that money up and lock that financial stability up.
Yeah, I look at it, and you and I talked off the pod. I always thought that Trey would come in under $30 million, just because if you look at some of these other contracts that were given out, may not have been for players that either play the amount of minutes that they're projected to play. Trey's been averaging around 30 minutes the last couple of years anyways. And so even if his role does continue to grow, which I expect it to over the next couple seasons, again, I didn't think he was at a spot to go demand a max contract. Well, then again, I didn't think Jalen Suggs would get $30 million.
Raph, let's talk. Okay, let's talk. All right, so I'm gonna give you 3 names. Okay, I'm gonna give you 3 names, and one of these players has made first team all defense. Jalen Suggs, Jaden McDaniels, and Herb Jones. One of those players has made NBA first team all defense. The other 2 have not. The other 2 have an average of $100+ million. And the one who has not made, the one who did make first team all defense has a $54-55 million contract. Again, this front office gets a lot of slack, as they should. As I get it, the frustration from the fans and everything. But when you look at some of these contracts and you look at what the best players on other teams are making, what the best players on this team are making, what are the tertiary players on other teams making, and what are the tertiary players on the Pelicans making, and you look at some of these contracts that are given out and options and just sheer amount of money. When you start looking at some of these contracts and you look at the Pelicans kind of contracts on the books, they were doing some negotiating and some sliding on some of these things. So to see Jalen Suggs get $150 million, to see Jaden McDaniels get $110 million, but other people to get these extremely about Jalen Johnson. Like, I understand he's really good for Atlanta, but $150 million for that guy, I just it's a lot to think of. But it just. I think that Jalen Suggs contract is the one everybody's like, whoa, okay. So we'll see.
All right. Again, for what Trey Murphy means to this team and what he means playing next to a player like Zion, you and I have talked about this off the pod. Like, I think in terms of like least tradable players on the team, you got Zion at 1, and I think Trey is number 2. And I think like when you put those 2 players together and let them grow, they're the same age, and you let them grow together, I think you're putting yourself in a phenomenal spot. To your point about Herb Jones and to this organization altogether, again, say what you want to say about the front office, say what you want to say about injuries and lack of availability and coaching and this, that, and the other. But to say that you've drafted several players that you're not signing to great contracts, not good contract. Like when Herb's contract came out, you were like, that's a really good contract. And then Herb shot 42% from 3 and was first team all defense. And now you're like, that's the best contract in the NBA. And then you go get Trey Murphy, who is literally the prototype of what every single team is looking for. A guy who's 6'10", can defend and can shoot from outside of the arena. That's what you're looking for in a player in today's NBA. And to say you got it for $28 million when Jalen Johnson is getting $50 million a year, and Jalen Green, who had like a good stretch of games last season, but outside of that has been a big question mark. gets 30 plus. Like that, I feel like they're leaning in on the fact that they've always said this is a really close locker room. They want to keep the team together. Herb and Trey are besties, and all these things. You're starting to see it in the contracts, right? It's not just talk. They're not maximizing. Like Trey even said going into the offseason, I'm not trying to, get every dollar I can out of the team because they understand, and you're seeing it in New York. You're going to have to sacrifice. Like if you want to keep a team together, everybody's not making the max. In fact, multiple people probably have to look to see, okay, if I slide $5-10 million off, can that help Jose get a contract? Can that help? Like that's the conversations you're having in the next couple of years before the salary cap kind of catches up with what the CBA is today. But again, I think this is another team-friendly contract to go along with Jose and Herb and to Zion. And I think it's another one of those. And I think it's another staple that the Pelicans are building something strong. You are re-signing your own players that everyone in the NBA values, and you're signing them at a number that you like versus anything else. So again, it's a plus all around in terms of what I see. You lock Trey down. I know he's coming off the injury right now. I know he's not coming off his best season or best performance. But again, I think it's a great spot to be in for the Pelicans, knowing that you got at least one of these contracts.
Yeah, just to kind of close it out. We are big fans of listening to other the national pods. Everybody's big fans of listening. But one of the things everybody, Brian Windhorst always talks about is when a player signs a contract, can you immediately trade it, right? And I look at some of these contracts and I'm like, I don't know how many people are knocking at Orlando's door for Jalen Suggs under that money. I don't know how many people are knocking on as talented as the roof is for Jalen Johnson. I don't know how many people are knocking down the door for Atlanta to trade, get him on the books for $50 million. I think you could find a good amount of teams that would be knocking on the Pelicans' door to try to get Trey Murphy for $27, $28, $29 million a year. So once again, I think it's a really good contract.
For sure. So you go from that and the exciting news there and the movement there. Hey, the Pelicans also signed Brandon Boston Jr. to a two-way deal.
Mm-hmm.
Two-way deal today as well. To the matchup that's coming in less than 36 hours, something like that. Not too long away versus the Chicago Bulls. So again, first game of the season. I don't really like to look at stats from last year because that team is completely different. There is no Caruso, there is no DeRozan. That's a big change. Levine is back from injury. That's a big change. That's hard to look up. But what I do like to look at is storyline. So the biggest question, I think, for Pelicans fans, for NBA fans, for the coaching staff of the Bulls, to game plan for the game, is what is the starting lineup for the Pelicans? Because Willie Green has been close to the vest. He's been asked every day in practice, can you tell us the starting lineup? And he's like, I plan to have it, laid out to the team prior to the game. Well, you run out of time. Today is Monday. The game starts on Wednesday. Do you think that there's a advantage to keeping everyone close and not having someone's feelings hurt hours before the season starts? Or do you think at this point everyone kind of knows it just hasn't been announced yet?
I think two things. Number one, I think they all know. I just think it hasn't. They're keeping it close to the chest. But again, you're going into the season. You're going into the beginning of the season. Unfortunately, with a very similar question, because Chris, we got a report today from Christian Clark saying that DeJounte may not be available for the game. Right? They're hopeful. The Pelicans are hopeful that he's going to be there. But they don't know because of whatever this excused absence is. And, much respect and to DeJounte for whatever he's dealing with. I'm sure it's something that he talked about how much he loved being here and how excited he was to get on the floor and all this talent around him. So to have him to not be available, it has to be something you would think that is something that, is serious. So, you want to give all respect and due to him and privacy to him. But, if he's not, you don't know if he's going to be there. So if he's not there, that's at least one projected starter, and then obviously Trey's not going to be there. So you just don't know. Maybe they don't know who the starting lineup is, if DeJounte is out. But I do think it has been a massaging of egos throughout this entire time. You've heard Willie Green mention everybody's making it so difficult on me. Sound like Doc Rivers after he took over the Bucks. This job is so difficult. It's so hard because everybody's been showing out in training camp and playing well in preseason, at least to his, to obviously what he sees and what he's saying out loud. And so, I think it's a little bit of massaging of the egos. But I do think that once the DeJounte trade happened, I think that it was kind of like the elephant in the room. They're like, oh, nobody's gonna talk about it. Nobody's gonna mention it. Nobody's gonna say anything. I'll do whatever they ask me to. Oh, coach has all the idea. I think it's been known. It's just been something that they don't want to address. But like you said, Wednesday, they roll the ball out, and you have to put 5 people out there. Like I said before, the Pelicans have all of these good players. The NBA is not going to say, that is a pretty loaded roster. We're gonna let the Pel slide 6 on the floor just because y'all got a lot of decent players on that team. You can only put 5 out there. And so, you're running out of time to massage these egos and things. So I think I think you hear the starting lineup tomorrow. I think you hear the starting lineup Tuesday. They kind of give you an answer to the DeJounte question and also give you an answer to that starting lineup question.
I agree with that. Number 2 storyline. It's funny how you and I have joked over our entire lives that players seem to just miraculously get healthy when they play against New Orleans franchise, whether it's the Saints, whether it's the Pelicans, whether it's the Voodoo, it don't matter. They just miraculously get healthy. It's the return of Lonzo Ball to the team that he used to play for after not playing for 2 years. So you talk about miraculous. Now, it's great to watch Lonzo on the court. I watched him a little bit in the preseason. Again, you hate for a player's career to be derailed by injuries. And, for him, a aspiring player who just signed a big contract in Chicago to take the next step to immediately get injured, that hurts the game. And I'm a fan of the game. And so to see him back on the court is a good thing. But to say it come against the Pelicans in the first game of the season, like, come on, man. Like, it's just ridiculous. But good to see Lonzo back in action. I'm assuming he's going to be in the rotation on some type of, limited minutes. And shout out to E.J. Liddell, who got picked up by Chicago after getting traded to Atlanta and then cut. Picked up by Chicago. Now he's on a 2-way rep. So it's the return of Lonzo and E.J. What are your thoughts about that? Do you see Lonzo coming back and hitting 3 or 4 threes, and then all of a sudden the Smooth Kicks in there is booing Lonzo in his return?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see Lonzo, man. I think, he's been through a lot, and it's been encouraging and empowering just to watch him kind of work back from this and to see him back on the floor. Now, Chicago now has an issue now. They got like 5 or 6 guards because you just traded for Josh Giddey. And now you got Ayo DeSumo there, and now you got Lonzo, and of course the Pelican killer Kobe White. So you just have all of these guards. So it's gonna be interesting to see how they run things. I do think that Lonzo's gonna get minutes. I don't know if it's gonna be a whole ton of them. I'm sure BI will have some things to say to Lonzo to welcome him back, obviously, and to catch up with him. But it's gonna be interesting to see. I think the Pelicans match up well against the Bulls. So I'm gonna be interested to see, what's the chess match between all of these guards on over there. And I haven't even mentioned Zach LaVine. So you have all of these guards. It's kind of like the Pelicans. Like they just have all the wings, and the Bulls have all of the guards. And so it's gonna be interesting to see. But Lonzo's return, I want to see how the Smoothie King treats Lonzo, because he was obviously a polarizing player when he was in New Orleans. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of love for Lonzo when he checks in, just as the humanity and as seeing a guy come back from. But obviously there were people in New Orleans who love Lonzo as well. So it's going to be an interesting atmosphere come Wednesday.
Right, and you mentioned key matchups, and I want to dive into that a little bit with you. So, yes, Zach LaVine has missed some time. Yes, Lonzo Ball has missed some time. It's been a while since they matched up with the Pelicans and things like that. But I think for a player like Zach LaVine, who has a ton of talent, he's another one who's been derailed by injuries over the course of his career, and probably been given a kind of a tough light, given his situations. What do you think that matchup looks like with Herb Jones? Because Zach LaVine's had some killer games now. I know it was a while ago, but he's had some killer games versus the Pelicans. We put up 45. I remember he had 8 out of 8 threes versus Lonzo one game. He's had some big performances against the Pelicans in the past. How do you think Herb Jones in game 1 comes out and tries to kind of cut off the head of the snake?
Yeah, and I mean, if obviously you don't take everything from preseason, but man, like he was on a heater in preseason, and he's coming into this game on a heater, and so you're gonna have to be ready. Like this is somebody who can get hot and get unconscious quick. He's a front runner for sure, meaning like if he gets rolling, like it's hard to stop him once he gets rolling. But Herb Jones is obviously up for the task. This is probably about as healthy as Herb Jones is going to be all season after he start taking his lumps from Luka and his lumps from Jason Tatum and all of the physical stuff. This is about as healthy as he's going to be, and probably as locked in as he's going to be. And so it's going to be a chess match between those two. And I think if Herb can put some pressure on Zach LaVine, make him test that knee, obviously it's something that he's been dealing with. He's recovered from it, but you want to make him put it on the ground, make him drive past you, and do some of those things. Put him into the help of the other players. But I mean, Herb is first team all defense for a reason, and it's going to be, it's going to be upon him to take that challenge. And I think the good thing about the Pelicans, especially if DeJounte is able to play, is that it doesn't have to be a one-man show now. If DeJounte is out there, DeJounte can take some of those situations, and Herb can get on Kobe White or whatever the case is. And so this is why you go out and get a guy like DeJounte, so that Herb is not the end-all, be-all. Obviously, he's the primary. He's the first-team all-defense guy. He is the guy that's going to be doing that. But you want to make Zach LaVine work, make him shoot a lot of shots for his numbers, right? If he's efficient, then that probably means the Bulls are doing well in that game. But if he's putting up 23, 24, 25 shots and making 7 or 8, obviously he's going to make shots. So and Herb knows that, so you live with some of them. But make him shoot a lot of shots to get his numbers, as opposed to being an efficient scorer, because I think that's what Zach LaVine is known as: an empty calorie, high capacity scorer, a high attempt scorer, who's also getting paid $50 million a year. So I think, just make him a gunner, make him not play in the team system, and the Pelicans should be all right in that matchup.
Yeah. So you talk about, this being a good matchup. Last year it wasn't. The Pelicans were 0-2 versus the Bulls. We were there in the house for the home game where CJ McCollum was injured. Jose was ejected from getting in a fight in Miami. So literally there wasn't very many people to dribble the ball. And, quite frankly, Chicago just suffocated the Pels in the backcourt. There were so many turnovers before the pass half court that the Bulls made it really tough. Now,
you know what else I remember from that game, Raphael? Willie Green. God bless him. Willie Green put a front court out there, Raphael. And that front court was Larry Nance and Jeremiah Robinson Earl. Hey, Raphael.
I remember.
Let me tell you something, Raphael. That was not a good day for me. All right. It was not a good day for me. So let's avoid that if we can. Let's avoid the Jeremiah Robinson Earl small ball for if it's Javonte Green this time. Let's avoid that. All right. We have moved past that. We have evolved past that.
Well, the good thing is Andre Drummond's no longer on that team, because he was killing the Pels last year. But you look at that, and then you also remember the game earlier in the season in Chicago where Kobe White could not miss. And you bring up a good point of having DeJounte Murray around, not just so that Zach LaVine can see different bodies and different bodies type and you can give Herb a break, but so that if Zach LaVine is going off, you have someone to guard Kobe White. Because, again, that's something that the Pelicans were a really good defensive team last year, but that's something that you saw pop up multiple times. If they were able to slow down one perimeter threat, there wasn't a second guy who could kind of hold his own on the perimeter, because that's not really CJ's forte. And so I look at that. So I look at not just the Herb Jones and the Zach LaVine matchup, but also the DeJounte Murray potentially, as long as he's able to make it to the game versus Kobe White. But then I look at the biggest matchup of it all, which this is going to be the biggest matchup every single game. Vucevic versus the field. I'm not even going to say center because I don't know who the starting center is. Whoever is lining up against Vucevic, that's my answer. Whether it's Zion, whether later in the season it's Trey, whether later in the season it's Eves, Daniel Tice, sender to be named, I don't know. That's the matchup I'm looking at that we talked about in the preseason, we talked about in the offseason. The Pelicans have to gain rebound because they don't have a dominant rebounder on this team. There is not, even the centers that are on the team are not dominant rebounding centers. At least not yet in Eve's case. He could become that one day, but he's not there today. So it is going to be a gang effort, night in and night out to hit the boards. Vucevic, say what you want. His stats have been kind of dwindling over the years, and people calling into question his effectiveness. But he's always been really good on the boards, and he's always been able to score. And so those two things alone, when you don't have a traditional center, so to speak, to match up versus those things, that's the matchup that I'm looking for. Are you going to attack the boards as a collective? What are your thoughts on how the Pels can slow down Nikola Vucevic?
Yeah, Big Vooch is he can ball, he can hoop, and I liken him to a poor man's, as far as the Pelicans' eyes go, a poor man's JV, right? But the problem with it is that they play to Vucevic the way that like the Pelicans would not play to JV. So the things that make Vooch good, like low post scoring, offensive rebounding, putbacks, and things like that, they play toward that. They give him the ball. If it's not Kobe and Zach going off, then it's dumping down to Vooch and letting him play on the elbow and down low and things. So to your point, it's going to take a gang effort. Once that shot goes up, you obviously the Pelicans want to play in transition, and it's going to be very difficult to kind of balance gang rebounding and also playing in transition, because in order to gang rebound, everybody has to be underneath the boards. But in order to play in transition, everybody has to be out. So the Pelicans are gonna have to play with a lot of frenetic energy. They're gonna have to rebound and turn and look to go if they want to play with that higher pace. So it's gonna take the team to rebound, hit the boards. One person box out. One person is the well, we do these drills all the time when I coach at things. One person see ball, one person see man. Box that person, one person box out the person, box out Vucevic, the other person go gets the rebound. You may not get the rebound. It might not go into your stat column, but you boxed Vuce out in order to let, DeJounte or Herb get that rebound, whatever the case is. So this is going to be one of the situations where I'm very interested to see how Willie Green goes, because although the Bulls are not one of the, projected to be one of the better teams in the league, Vucevic is still a center you need to kind of game plan around. And so this is like the first test of going against a rebounding big, a low post scoring big. What is your starting lineup? What is your starting matchup versus him? And then what is the game plan towards him? Let's say that if they start Daniel Tice and Vooch gets the best of him a couple of times, then what do you do? What's the next step after that? And so to combat with him, you want to see gang rebounding. You want to see one person boxing out and other people crashing for the boards. And you want to see a hustle from the Pelicans, because they're not going to be able to just get the rebound and slowly walk it up. That's not going to be the best version of the Pelicans. So you have to be able to gang rebound and then also be able to get out for easy scores in transition, to get those easy buckets.
Yeah, I look at two other things. The turnover battle, one, again, the Pelicans had games in the preseason where they were just sloppy with the ball, which – again, when you don't have a cohesive unit and the chemistry is not there, those things tend to happen. It's also the first game of the season. Nerves come out. I understand these are professional, but it's natural for you to get the kinks out in the first couple games, and you've been waiting all season to show what you got and put it in writing. And typically it's a little sloppy to come out the gates. The Bulls were third fewest in turnovers last year. They went and got Josh Giddey, who's a true point guard. You went and got Lonzo Ball off the IR. So you got multiple point guards to run the show from that standpoint. So can the Pelicans do what they set out to do, which was go get a DeJounte Murray to pair with Herb Jones, go get a rim protector behind him and be super aggressive on the defensive end and turn defense into offense. So I'm looking at the turnovers, not just how do the Pelicans manage and take care of the ball, but also how do you turn the other team over, because that's going to be a calling card for this team all season long. So that's a big one. Lastly, the biggest matchup I'm looking for, honestly, especially in this one, I want to see the Chicago bench versus the Pelicans second line. The Pelicans had one of the best benches in the league last year. Regardless of how things shake out with the starting lineup, they're going to have some combination of Herb, DeJounte, CJ, Trey, Jordan Hart, all of those players. Some of those players have to come off the bench. And so not alone Jose Alvarado. So I expect them to have another year of having really solid bench production. And there were times last season where the Pelicans bench won them games. And I don't know if this is necessarily game one, something you're looking for, but I don't see they still have that pop. Do you still lean forward to the front of your seat every time Jordan Hawkins or Trey Murphy puts up a three? Like that's the type of feeling you want out of your second unit. And that's something they have to reestablish, because there were a lot of changes there. No Najee Marshall, no Dyson Daniels, no Larry Nance. It's a different bench unit. So I want to see what that looks like versus a Chicago team that's not super deep or super adept with talent.
Yeah, I agree. I think the second line is going to be super important, throughout this season. But obviously with this game, people are out, right? Trey is not going to be playing, and so you obviously got a little punch taken away. But you have enough guys on a team who should be able to step up and do things. One thing that I'm looking forward to. Obviously, we talk about defense a lot because that's the calling card for the Pelicans and things. I want to see the offense. I want to see the offense. Chicago is not a good defensive team by any stretch of the imagination. We just finished talking about Zach LaVine and Nikola Vucevic and Josh Giddey. Like, those guys are good offensive players, but they are negatives on the defensive side of the ball. And so last season, Chicago deployed this like really kind of weird defense on Zion, where not weird, but they treated Zion like a big man. They put a big man in front of him. And for some odd reason, the Pelicans would not make the adjustment and allow Zion to kind of initiate the offense up top. They kept dumping it to him, and he kept being double teamed on the block. And so I think I want to see that now. If the Bulls go to that again, what is the adjustment, right? And even if they don't, like off the tip ball, the Pelicans should have an offensive advantage by far, because the Pelicans have defenders on one side and the Bulls really don't. And so I want to see Zion going directly to the rim. I want to see him testing Vucevic at the rim, because he's not a shot blocker. And so you should be able to get to the rim at will. And that should open up the 3-point line for the Pelicans. For the Pelicans, because they're going to have to put people in front of Zion. They're going to have to put people in front of Brandon Ingram. They're going to have to put people, if DeJounte can play after he turns that corner and gets into a two-man game with Zion and himself or whoever, like they're going to have to put people in front of him. And so they should be able to spread out to the 3-point line. But I think this is a game I know we talk about, and you want to see them get the threes up. This is a great opportunity for the Pelicans to establish some scoring in the post, going to the rim against a team that doesn't have a lot of people to stop you at the perimeter, and definitely don't have any rim protection at the rim. And so obviously you want to see the defense be on point, because I think that's going to be the thing that helps the Pelicans ceiling go up. But man, this offense with all the, with these talented players, you should have an advantage on this Chicago defense. And you should be able to flex it early and often, getting into the paint at will. And then if they decide to start building that wall, that's when those threes can start coming in. And you start letting them fly.
Right. So that leads us into the keys to success in this matchup. And hopefully the Pelicans are looking a little bit differently after the game. So last year, again, the Pelicans had the best road record in the NBA. Well, they were only 21-19 at home. So if you could get a win at home to start the season off, that gives you a little bit more momentum into having a positive 10 games. They have one winning season in the last 10 years in the first 10 games of the season. Like,
that's insane.
They had at least 5 wins in the first 10 games. Hopefully you're setting yourself up for success with some of the matchups that you have. And so let's look at what it takes to be successful in this matchup in particular. So you already talked about it. You saw it once in the preseason already. The Pelicans shot a ton of threes, didn't make a whole lot of threes, but they didn't really get to the paint without Zion in the game. Paint to great was one of the key principles last year, and as long as Zion is on the team, it's going to be a key principle that year as well. The Pelicans were 5th in the NBA in catch and shoot threes last year. That probably had a lot to do with Zion. You probably could afford to shoot even more. It's all about how your threes are being generated. They don't have a whole lot of pull up off the dribble three shooters. Most of the Jordan Hawkins, Trey Murphy, CJ McCollum in his best state are catch and shoot players. And so it starts with drawing the defense in, making the defense collapse off Zion, off Brandon Ingram. And like we talked about last pod, off DeJounte Murray, off Jose Alvarado. Whoever is in the game has to consistently force the issue and make Nikola Vucevic, who's not a good defender, stop you at the rim. Make them Pat Williams or whoever you're throwing up there against Zion stop you at the rim and then kick out for good shots. Not just shoot a three just to shoot a three, right? Make sure you are generating good looks. The second thing I think that's super important is ball movement. This is what everyone's looking for. This is the chemistry piece that you look and you say, there's something wrong, or they seem to figure it out. How fast does the ball move? How quickly is it going from one person's hands to the next? Is the ball sticking and then you're dribbling 9 times? Or are you just holding the ball for 10 seconds at a time? You talk about last year how Chicago threw a big man on Zion and then forced everyone else to beat him. I remember them putting Alex Caruso at the top of the three-point line and basically saying, dribble past me as a guard. And Caruso is one of the better perimeter defenders in the league. Instead of saying, Zion, you're bigger than him, go in the post first him. And so, how do you counteract that? By making sure that the ball consistently moves so that they cannot send doubles, so they cannot. There's only so many doubles you can send when you have DeJounte, B.I., Zion, CJ. You can't double everybody on the court. So how are you making the defense pay? Does the offense look like a well-fined orchestra, or does it look like, to your point, your turn, now my turn, now I get a shot, now you get a shot, now you get a shot. Oh, yeah, Hawk, come on in the game, you get a shot too. What does the offense look like from that standpoint? So the way the Pelicans won last year, they were 15-5 when they had at least 30 assists. Again, if you're creating a whole bunch of extra possessions off the steals and the deflections that you cause because you're a hellacious defensive team, you should be able to get 30 assists by kick-ahead passes, by catch-and-shoot threes to the corners and things like that. That should be a staple that they should be looking at. 43-point shots and 30 assists a game. What are some other things that you're looking at in order for the Pels to walk away with a win?
Yeah, I agree. Ball movement and the three-point line. I saw a stat that Zion had the 3rd most potential assists from a left-hand player. He wasn't throwing lobs to JV, so I'm going to assume that a lot of those were spray out passes to the three-point line. And so you're gonna, can Zion get into the paint and kind of do whatever he wants there, right? Score if it's there, or make that play. And if DeJounte isn't playing, you're gonna need a facilitator to do it. So that'll be upon BI and Zion. And speaking of BI, I think he's a key in this game because again, if they sell out and put Patrick Williams on Zion and they build this wall, this is the luxury of having another 20-25 point per game guy who can get his own bucket on any time, because he should be able to get a matchup. If Pat Williams is on Zion, there is not another plus defender on the Bulls. So BI will have a favorable matchup. Go ahead and start this new. Everybody else getting paid. You have yet to get paid. Go ahead and start this revenge tour early, right? And get you a 25, 30-point game to start this off. I think Brandon Ingram is one of the biggest keys in this game, going into it. And then also, I want to see the Pelicans get to the free throw line, right? Whatever it takes, if it's getting into the paint and looking for contact, selling out on some of these closeouts like Jordan Hawkins does. Get to the free throw line, because that's going to get the Bulls in foul trouble early. Again, they don't have a lot of plus defenders, so that's going to get them in foul trouble early and get you to the line for free points, for easy points. What it does also, it enables you to get your defense set up against a team that has a lot of offensive weapons. And so I think getting to the free throw line is going to be huge. And Herb's offense, right? Again, you're looking at all of these different guys that's going to be on the floor. I think even with DeJounte in question, I think it's safe to say that Herb will be in the starting lineup come Wednesday. You know, what does he look like in this first? Because he's going to be the guy that everybody's going to be like, okay, we need to go Zion, we need to go BI, you know, for the rest of the season. You know, DeJounte is gotta get a guy on DeJounte. Herb is gonna be the guy that's like, he's the fourth or the fifth option the way the defenses look. So can Herb get into more, you know, DeJounte talked about Herb being more aggressive and looking for his own shot and not looking to other guys because he can do it himself. Attack some of those creases, attack some of those areas, those weak defenders. If they put a smaller guy on you, go to the rim, use your athleticism, use your strength. Don't let them rest on you. Just obviously you want to see him in that corner shooting those threes, but don't just be a guy standing there. Like, get involved, have him screen, have him cut, do things like that, because Herb's basketball IQ is a nightmare matchup for the fourth worst defender on your team. It just is. And so I think that he can have an opportunity to also do some things on that backside, on that weak side, while some of the other action is happening.
Yeah, absolutely. So, again, we are here. The season is upon us. Less than 48 hours before tip-off. That being said, this is our 200th anniversary episode. Wild that
Crazy.
We put 200 down so far on the show. For everybody that's in the comments, for everybody that's following along, we thank y'all for rocking with us. There's so much more ahead. You'll find out soon enough in regards to that. We do have a giveaway. I'll give you guys that are watching right now a head start. The question is, how many triple doubles do the Pelicans have as a total team right now? It's probably a number lower than what you think of everyone on the roster combined. So I'll give you a head start, and then I'll post it on Twitter right after this. But Garrick, the season is here. Thank God we'll be in the Smoothie King Center. Thank God, sooner rather than later. What you got left for the people as the season tips off tomorrow?
200 episodes in, come a long way from stuck in the middle. You know, just big shout out to the whole New Orleans Network family for picking us up and allowing us to come to you guys and give you guys at least a small portion. Obviously, there's so many different ways you can consume Pelicans content, and all of them are great. Those people are great. But we appreciate you rocking with us and putting up with our shenanigans for 200 episodes. So as always, you never know what people are going through. So give someone a smile today. You know, it is time. Like, we will be in there Wednesday. You coming in. I can't wait to be back in the Smoothie King Center. I've missed it dearly. And so I'll be looking forward to it. So as always, follow myself at Garrick _Rattler. Follow my brother at Raphael _Rattler. Follow the page at NO_basketball, no E. That's on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you get your social medias. Most importantly, subscribe to New Orleans Network, and we'll see you guys next time.